It's a new day, and that means new stories from Ocean Story. Let's begin. I have never been lucky in stakes with my partners. This year, I broke up with two girls who seemed great to me. The last one was Scarlett, who won my heart. With her kindness and serious attitude, I dated her for 7 months and started to think that I might soon ask Scarlett to be my wife. My brother recommended that I marry Scarlett because she is one of the best girls I've ever had. I didn't want to rush things too much, so I kept a certain pause. At that time, my uncle and aunt were my parents. I had been in conflict with my birth parents for 2 years. My uncle Matthew often says, "Nephew, your girlfriend reminds me of my wife when she was young." I am very flattered that Matthew compares my girlfriend so highly. My aunt Victoria hit it off with Scarlett very quickly. Sometimes I had the impression that they were two friends. Before I proposed to Scarlett, I learned a fact. That ended our relationship. Scarlett had 2 sons in her care, but she never told me about it. In fact, I found out by accident. When I was on the phone with Scarlett and I heard a child's voice during the conversation, Scarlett said, "I must have heard something else." 2 seconds later, a child's voice said, "Mom, where did you put my socks?" That's how I found out that Scarlett had children. In the first weeks, I tried not to think about it too much. It seemed to me that my love for Scarlett was stronger than my fear of becoming a father to 2 children I didn't know. Another week passed and I met Scarlett. That day I told her, "We can't have a relationship anymore." Scarlett was very upset and started crying. I explained to her that I was not ready to be a dad at this moment, especially to 2 children at once. Scarlett said, "It's not so bad and you can get used to children quickly." If Scarlett hadn't persuaded me, I couldn't have agreed to it. I have a certain fear that I will not be able to become a normal father and raise adequate people. I didn't want to become the kind of father you don't even want to think about. So I broke off the relationship with Scarlett and decided to get her out of my life as much as possible. I took all her things out of my room and returned them to her. Scarlett kept telling me that she loved me very much and didn't want to be without me. But it's very hard for me to come to terms with the idea that I'm going to be a dad just a week after I marry Scarlett. That was the only reason I didn't agree to get back together with Scarlett. Some of my friends called me an irresponsible and insensitive man. My aunt and uncle were the most upset. My aunt felt especially bad because she became friends with my ex-girlfriend. Victoria told me a bunch of times that I was making a big mistake and I should go back to Scarlett because she's the best girl I've ever met. I explained to my aunt that it was hard for me to be a dad at such a young age. My aunt was resentful of me for a while. Because of my breakup with Scarlett, Victoria couldn't see her as often as she did when I was in a relationship with Scarlett. The only one who supported me as much as possible was my brother Samuel. He said I did the right thing, and he didn't give Scarlett too much hope that she had finally found a dad for her children. I was very grateful for my brother's concern. Over time, my aunt and uncle came to terms with my decision and stopped mentioning my ex's name so often. This all happened 4 months ago. I've been dating Madison for 2 months now. I like this girl, and she doesn't keep secrets from me, unlike Scarlett. After my aunt introduced me to Madison, Victoria said, "Your new girlfriend is not bad, but she's definitely not better than Scarlett." Even though 4 months had passed, my aunt still couldn't get over it. The last time I met my aunt and uncle, there was a conflict. Matthew and Victoria were planning to spend the new year at their house, inviting only their closest relatives. Of course, I agreed to come to the party. Thank God, I bought a new car this year, so I could easily get where I needed to go. I arrived from Madison not too late to help out a bit. My girlfriend stayed in the car for a while because she hadn't gotten everything organized. While Madison was on the phone with her friend, I went inside. I walked into the kitchen and saw Scarlett standing next to my aunt, chopping a salad. I was in a tizzy and frozen place. Only after a few seconds did my aunt notice me and start explaining why Scarlett was here. My aunt told me, and I knew perfectly well, that Scarlett's parents were not celebrating anything this year. But I didn't want Scarlett's children to be alone in the apartment all New Year's Eve, so I thought it would be nice to invite them. I listened to her to the end and answered, "Have a great New Year's Eve. I have to go because Madison is waiting for me." My aunt tried to stop me and make me stay with them. However, I did not respond to Victoria's words, but simply left the house. When I got into the car, Madison ended the conversation. She asked me, "What's wrong with you?" I told Madison what had just happened in the house. We went to our apartment and celebrated the new year together. I never expected my uncle and aunt to do this. I always thought they would be supportive of my feelings. In the afternoon, I received a call from my uncle, apologizing for him and his wife inviting Scarlett and ruining my holiday. I said, "You did a very treacherous thing," and struck me right in the heart. "Uncle, you knew it was very painful for me to see Scarlett, but you didn't stop Victoria from inviting my ex to the party." Matthew said, "Son, I know exactly how you feel, but your aunt insisted and said it would only be good for you. So I trusted her. My aunt was standing next to me the whole time and heard everything." Victoria broke into my conversation with my uncle and started telling me that she wanted to make me feel for Scarlett, and through that, I was supposed to come back to her and create a strong family. I said, "That's the stupidest idea you've ever had." My aunt got angry with me and called me ungrateful for insulting her brilliant idea. I told my uncle that if something like that ever happened again, I would never go to their house again, and even if I die, you will be the last to know about it. My relatives think that I was very rude, and I have to apologize to my family. I sent them all away, and I'm not going to apologize for anything. My aunt only thought about her feelings and rejected my words. Maybe I was a little rude when I said everything on emotion, but I don't want to have any more relations with my aunt and uncle. David, your aunt broke your personal boundaries and thought she could take control of the whole situation between you and your ex-girlfriend. Clearly, your aunt and uncle had good intentions in wanting to reunite you with Scarlett. However, their approach lacked sensitivity to your feelings and personal decisions. You are a real person with feelings of your own. Your aunt stuck her nose where it didn't belong. After all, you're not 13 years old anymore. When a person needs advice, you are over 25 years old, and at your age, a person is already able to distinguish between their feelings and know clearly that they no longer love a person. Victoria wanted to create the perfect family for herself, but she didn't care that you had a girlfriend at the moment. Like, it's the same when you're holding a glass of drink and someone offers you another glass of drink. Victoria couldn't accept that you didn't want to be with Scarlett anymore, so she acted stupid. Joseph, if you went to your aunt and uncle's party, this does not mean that they can do whatever they want. Although your aunt and uncle may have thought they were acting in your best interest, their decision to invite Scarlett without your consent crossed the line and disregarded your feelings. It's important for family members to recognize and respect each other's choices, even if they differ from their own. It's very silly when so much time has passed and your aunt is trying to make you feel for Scarlett. It's like trying to make someone love something they can't stand anymore. I wonder why your aunt Victoria didn't stop you from having a girlfriend. Madison, however, can force someone to break up with someone for another person they no longer have feelings for. The whole story seems like a complete foolishness on the part of the author's aunt. I think you shouldn't talk to your aunt for a while. Maybe your uncle didn't do such a stupid thing, but he didn't stop your aunt. So I have questions for Matthew as well. I wonder how Matthew would be a real boss. He could have stopped Victoria from calling Scarlett. Next story. I have 3 children in my family and my husband Carter. I have to cook a lot of food for my family because my children are not big and eat a lot to grow. They also go to sports clubs, which takes a lot of time and energy. I think no matter how hard I work at work, I am always busy cooking. My husband and I have never shared a kitchen. I mean, we cook together, and it's not like I only cook and Carter cleans. Each of us does what we can and what we have time for. I mostly cook because I am much better at it than my husband. This year, we are celebrating Thanksgiving at my house. My husband invited his brother and his family. For my part, I invited my 2 sisters and their families. The only problem with cooking is the children. Not every one of them likes to eat meat dishes or food served as side dishes. My husband's brother has a son, Owen, who is 16 years old. If you could work as a food critic at 16, Owen would be a good fit. Without exaggeration, it is very difficult to give him something that will taste good to him. Owen's dad used to pick up fast food all the time, when we needed to spend a lot of time together. Before we all came to the festive table, I told my husband that I wouldn't let the little shit Owen thumb his nose at my food. This year, I tried harder than ever to prepare food that would please all the guests. When my husband's brother came, he brought a small bag of potatoes to fry and asked me for some chicken eggs. Wyatt also brought a package of sausages for his son. I was standing in the kitchen when Wyatt came up to me and asked me to make some space for him so he could cook something. I told Wyatt no and said, "Your son is not going to ruin my holiday this year, so I can offer you a choice. Either you're going to eat my food that I put a whole day of my life into, or you will drink only drinks and sit around with empty stomachs." Wyatt was outraged by my words and reacted, "I came for a celebration, so I want my son to be fed." I said, "Owen can be full if he stops being a child and starts eating my delicious food." Owen spent the entire dinner protesting and refusing to eat on principle. The worst part was when my husband asked Owen what he should have, and the little bastard answered, "I don't eat shit like that on your plates." I was ready to hit Owen, even though he was only 16 years old. His dad didn't even react to those words. The atmosphere at the table was very disgusting. By the end of the party, I felt really bad and I started to think that all the guests thought my food sucked. After dinner, I talked to Wyatt, but he said, "My son just expressed his opinion. I will not punish him for it." I told him that your stupid family will never be invited to the holidays, that I will be hosting again. We had a little fight with Wyatt and he left. A few weeks have passed since then, and I still remember what the little bastard said. My husband tried to reassure me that everything was fine, but the thoughts keep attacking me. I think Wyatt is a disgusting father who can't control his son. I don't feel any guilt for speaking out so harshly. Luna, in fact, your nephew did a very bad thing. His behavior shows that his father did not teach him to respect the efforts of others. Even if you don't like the food served at the holiday table, you have no right to insult the food and say, "It's shit." Some people don't even have that, and this Owen bastard turns his nose up at the turkey on his plate. I think you should starve Owen for 4 days. Maybe then he'll start to appreciate the food he has. I was also nasty as a child, like many children, but I never allowed myself to say that other people's food was shit or looked disgusting. At the very least, it was very uncultured, and you could get punished by your parents for that. I noticed that Wyatt did not react at all, but rather supported his son. Apparently, Wyatt has the same opinion as his son about your food. Your husband should confront Wyatt. This can't go on forever. Grace, if someone said that about my food, in front of all my guests and family, that person immediately felt the wrath of a housewife. I think a few dishes flew in the direction of the person who allowed himself such disgusting words. It scares me that the whole family just watched the situation, and no one even made a remark to Owen for his stupid statement. If I were Owen, after dinner my mom would have punished me and made me apologize to everyone. And this is really a very fair punishment for such stupid behavior. My children stopped being capricious when they turned 13 and ate everything I cooked. Owen is a teenager. Seriously, in 2 years he will be considered an adult, and now he behaves no better than a 9-year-old. Owen is a very spoiled boy who has no boundaries. Now I want to tell a different story. I get scared of pets when I see them or am near them. It has to do with my childhood. My sister and I had a big dog when I was 9 years old. One day, my sister Avery and I were playing in the yard with our dog. My sister made our dog very angry when she tried to touch his paws. The dog couldn't stand it and attacked, and I happened to be standing in front of his head, so the dog bit my leg several times. Since then, I have had to undergo several examinations and treatments. Now I'm 29 years old, but I still don't dare to get close to a dog. It got to the point where even small dogs like Chihuahuas scare me. I agree, it's not very cool when such a grown man is afraid of small dogs. My wife Sophia understands why I don't like dogs and has never laughed at me for it. My wife has a brother, Jacob, whom we haven't visited for a long time. After a trip to Jacob's house, my 2 daughters say we should get a small dog so they won't be so bored at home. I refuse this idea. There are several good reasons for this. The first is my personal fear of dogs. The second reason is that the girls are not even 8 years old. They won't be able to take care of a dog properly. said I don't want to take on additional responsibility. I told my daughters that they shouldn't ask me for a dog for the next 5 years. My children were very upset and begged me to change my mind. I felt a little sorry for my girls and once thought about getting a dog. My friend has some small dogs, and I went to look at them. But when I saw a dog that gave birth to little puppies, I was really scared and put the idea of getting a dog on hold until my future. So far, my fear is much greater than my love for animals. This month we were supposed to go to the forest with my family for a few days. My wife's brother was also going with us. Of course, Jacob took his dog with him on vacation. I can't say that these days were very good for me. The dog was constantly causing me a lot of stress, especially when we sat down at the table during dinner, and Jacob the dog sat down next to me to get a piece of meat. Every time I had a strange feeling that the dog would suddenly attack my leg and chew off my fingers. So every time I got up and walked away from the dog and ate only in a standing position. My family tried to reassure me that everything would be fine, but I just tried not to listen to them. It's very hard for them all to imagine what I was feeling at that moment. Even though I'm a big boy, I wanted to scream and run as far away from where the dog was as possible. The next day we roasted vegetables on the fire, and our children threw a stick to the dog. Suddenly, I heard barking and went to check if my children were okay. I came behind the car where our children were, and I saw my wife's brother's son lying on the floor of the car. I bent down to check on him to make sure he was okay. Suddenly, I heard a bark and saw a dog running at me. At that moment, something happened to me. It was like I lost consciousness for a few seconds. I fell to the ground and was very scared that I was about to be bitten by a rabid dog. Jacob came out from behind a tree and started laughing at me. I tell you, you should have seen the look on his face. I have never seen anything funnier. I got very angry with Jacob and called him a bastard for what he did. Jacob wanted to play a joke on me, so he planned the whole situation. And in the end, he pointed his dog at me to scare me. I was disgusted to be there. I got in my car and locked all the doors. For about 20 minutes, I was in a panic state and even shaking my whole body. Every minute I had thoughts in my head. I had no choice but to go home to feed my daughter. In the end, Camilla and I postponed our appointment with the notary, which we had been waiting for a whole week. We returned home and my wife fed our daughter. The whole thing took less than 5 minutes, so I was incredibly angry with Jackson. 3 hours later, Jackson returned home from his guitar practice. I was waiting for him to have a serious conversation with him because I was not satisfied with Jackson living with me and not being able to help me, especially when it came to helping me with my child. I started scolding my nephew and told him that my daughter Aria is very young, a story that really surprised me. This week we were supposed to go on vacation with a group of my friends. We decided to go to a local lake in our car. My girlfriend Chloe and I have our own motorhome. In fact, we hardly ever travel outside of our home states. It's just very convenient to have our own motorhome, and we go on vacation every summer. Before we went on vacation to the lake, we were in our apartment with our company. Everyone in our group of friends is under 30 years old. Chloe and I have been married for 1 month, and we just came back from a family trip. So a few days ago, we were with friends and just hanging out. We played different board games and talked about life while eating pizza. But things started to get out of hand when my friends started talking a lot about my married life with Chloe. I realized that we haven't been married for long, and some friends still can't accept this fact because one of the guys in our group used to date Chloe. Let's say that guy's name is John. So John often started jokes that I didn't like, or John would start telling intimate moments when he was still Chloe's boyfriend. I had to ask him several times to shut his mouth and not to say anything like that again. Of course, John couldn't stay silent and took every moment for himself. John was talking some nonsense that made a lot of people laugh. My wife was very embarrassed when she heard what John was saying. I went to John one last time and told him, "If you don't shut your mouth right now, I'm going to throw you out of the apartment and you'll never come in here again." Some of my friends heard what I said to John and started making fun of me for acting like a father protecting his daughter. I was disgusted to listen to some of the people who were in my house that night. My wife sat crying in the bathroom afterwards because she was embarrassed. I did not want to let this situation go. When it was time to go to the lake, all of our friends gathered at a local cafe, where we had a gathering point. John and a few other people who had been acting like freaks a few days earlier came there. I told them that because of their inappropriate behavior, they could not go with civilized people. John started to say that I was acting like a child because I was offended by a few jokes. The other friends I had turned down echoed John's words. I told them, "You really upset my wife a few days ago. Now you want to ruin 2 more days of her life? There is no place for assholes like you in my car. I will never deal with you again." John was very angry because he had taken off work to come with us for a few days. But I didn't care about his feelings at that moment. Some of my former friends at this point began to post on the internet their outrage at the situation. Of course, they wrote the whole situation in their favor, making me look like a rude person who wanted to sneeze at other people's desires. My reputation was partially ruined by these actions. A few days later, one of my wife's abusers posted a video. With a psychological analysis, he captioned it with, "How to identify adult but offended people among friends." In that video, my friend told me what a jerk I was because I forbade him to go to the lake with us because of a joke. My wife was very grateful that I stood up for her and didn't let those bastards go on vacation with us because they would have started laughing and telling their disgusting jokes there. They made bad jokes about everyone. I think this kind of behavior is inappropriate for adults. Although now some of my friends think I am too serious and emotional. Maybe you can tell me your opinion about this story. Penelope, your friends did a very bad thing to your wife. Boundaries are important in any relationship, and it's commendable that you took a stand to protect your wife from hurtful comments and inappropriate jokes. Because I know of cases where the husband joins in on these jokes and makes the situation worse. It is a pit that your friends did not realize the seriousness of their words and actions, and instead, some of them resorted to making you a target for criticism. In such situations, it is very important to maintain self-respect and respect boundaries, even if it means ending friendships with those who do not treat you and your partner with the respect you deserve. You should get rid of such people and not even try to get along with them. They are like mold that needs to be thrown away. Layla, you did the right thing when you sent your friends away. My husband would have done the same if something like this happened. I'm a very gentle person, and it's hard for me to yell at someone. In your case, the behavior of some of your friends, especially John, it crossed the line of respect and basic decency. Although humor is part of friendship, it should never harm others. Your decision to exclude these people from your vacation plans was justified because your priority was to create a positive and enjoyable atmosphere for you and your wife. It's not cool to have someone make fun of you or your family. Where did you get such friends? Maybe my children are more polite than these adults. Jack, men like the author should be held up as examples for teenagers to learn what kind of men they should be. In reality, no one had the right to make fun of you or your wife. Your friends must be very upset that they don't have their own couples, so they are making fun of you. Very often people start making fun of those who are more successful than they are. Your wife can sleep well knowing that she has a smart man next to her. There is nothing to write about John. John is a jerk who doesn't think about the feelings of others. He is only interested in laughing at other people. After all, if it's funny for him, it means it's funny for everyone. But John is very wrong, and he should apologize.